Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird, true stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Case file number 754, written by Macallan 25 or Bust. Do all dogs go to heaven? I'm an atheist and I largely dismiss the supernatural or plausibility of glitches. For example, I'm the one to watch ghost shows just to see how fake they are. Well, then this happened last week, and I just don't know what to think. My girlfriend and I live alone, and up until 2 years ago, we had a small dog, Havanese, that passed at 17 years old, previously my parents' dog. He would always do this thing where he would come up to a door he wanted into, and would scratch it 3 times to be let in. Little bastard destroyed all of our doors, but anyways. Well, on Thursday night, my girlfriend and I were having us time in the bedroom. Then abruptly we heard the same 3 scratches at our bedroom door. Directionally it sounded low to the ground and was the exact same manner as what our dog would do, except he's been dead for 2 years. How is my dead dog scratching my door? Has anyone had experiences with pets glitching or anything similar? Case notes for file 754. Do all dogs go to heaven? A bit peculiar this one is, mainly because of the time gap. So usually, when a loved one passes away, either a pet or a human being, typically if they come back at all, as a fragment or echo, it's to reassure the person that they were connected to that they're okay, that they're moving on. If they linger around for a long period of time, usually it means that they're intending to haunt or terrorize whoever's inhabiting there. There's a weird time gap here where you mentioned the dog passed away, but it's been years. Why did the dog wait until now? Or maybe you never noticed that your dog was pawing at the door before? Maybe it's been doing this for a long time, or maybe just wasn't able to for some reason. Either way, I wouldn't say there's any threat or that your dog is in pain. Maybe it feels lonely. You know what I would do if this happens again? Open the door. You may feel a presence there. A lot of people report sensing their pet on their bed even after they pass away. Usually cats, but sometimes dogs as well. It's almost as if even the spirit, even though it can phase through the door, doesn't want to come in without permission. That's a well-trained dog you had. Minus destroying the door, of course. Bonus file. Written by Hushabyesecret. The House on Harrison Street. Growing up in the 90s, I spent most of my time outside playing with the neighborhood kids. I didn't live in the greatest neighborhood, so I couldn't go out exploring, but all of my neighbors had kids my age except one. It was an old house with garbage across the yard and stuff piled up so high in the windows that you couldn't see inside. The only noticeable objects were an old Barbie camper and a teddy bear with a missing ear. I knew there was someone that lived there because their ugly, and I mean ugly, red Chevy car would leave the driveway right at noon and wouldn't come back until about 9 p.m. One night it came back, and the next day, there was a boy standing in the yard and shouting and waving at me. I was playing in an old dip in my backyard where a tree had been cut down when I saw him. I remember being confused, but I was a kid and was excited to meet someone new that was my age. I found out his name was Brandon, and I would always invite him to play outside after school. My mom didn't question me and my new friend, so she let him come and play in the backyard. I never saw him at school, and he said his grandma taught him from their house. I didn't want to play with the other neighborhood kids as much as I wanted to play with Brandon, so the two of us formed our own little group and we played in that dip in my backyard. Nobody really questioned it until I told my mom that I wanted to have school at my house like Brandon. She finally asked me where I met Brandon, and I told her he lived in a dirty house on Harrison. I remember the look on my mom's face being confused and concerned at first, but then she laughed in my face and told me I was being ridiculous. Brandon was my imaginary friend because nobody had lived in that house since the 70s. I got mad at her and said that I would prove that Brandon was real and that he would be outside the next day. But he never showed up again. I waited for him every day, but I never saw him. Eventually, we moved across town into an apartment and I made new friends and forgot about Brandon. But a few years ago, I felt nostalgic and decided to go for a drive through my old neighborhood. Not much had changed, and seeing the old neighborhood made me happy and brought back a lot of fun memories, until I passed the old house. It was obviously abandoned, but after all these years, the old Barbie camper and the teddy bear with the missing ear were still in the window. I saw that and laughed at how stuck to the idea that my imaginary friend was real, until I saw my ball. An old ball with my name written on it in big black ink was clearly visible from the window. The rainbow colors made it stick out like a sore thumb. I'd lost that ball around the time I'd first met Brandon. Maybe one of the neighbor kids had stolen it years ago and had it hidden away and I was just now noticing it. Maybe Brandon was just a figment of my overactive childhood imagination. Or maybe there was someone watching me back then and I was too innocent to see anything else other than my new friend. Thinking about it now, it does creep me out. But more than anything, I wish I had answers. If he was real, if he was another kid playing a prank, or if he was a lost spirit, and it bothers me that I'll never have the answers, but I'll always have the memories. As creepy as the memories are, they do make me happy and pique my curiosity. Case notes for the bonus file: The House on Harrison Street. I was reading the comments in the thread where this was posted, and you mentioned that many of the interactions you had with Brandon were physically manifested, like you dug holes or you climbed fences, things that would require if it was a spirit, to be interacting with the world intently. To dig a hole is no easy feat. So my impression is that this probably was a real boy, perhaps someone in witness protection. If they were in this old house, I wonder how that was working. It could stand to reason that old houses would be used as cover, perhaps safe houses of sorts, and indeed it was occupied. It could even be an adopted child, temporarily adopted. Sometimes there's foster care needs children that go and live temporarily with people that will not fully adopt them, but just give them a home temporarily. That may be what happened here, and actually makes a lot of sense because often people are paid to do that. So if someone was living in a dilapidated home, they probably needed money. If not, it probably was a manifested spirit, but a very, very old one. Would have to be very old in order to interact with the real world to the extent you described. If it was a spirit though, why did he mysteriously vanish? Creepy file number 48, written by DigTacBro, The Green Woman. When I was a kid, around 7 years old I think, I spent the day at my cousin's house in my old hometown. He lived right in the middle of town, so we could ride our bikes everywhere. This was back in '98, and in the tiny place I come from, everyone knows everyone and keeps an eye out for the safety of any kid they see. When my mom dropped me off at my aunt's house that morning, she gave me some money to be able to go to the corner store for snacks for my cousin and I. After a while, hunger struck and I took off on my bike to Reeves' grocery store. It was the best stocked store in town. There were only 2 stores. Pulling up, I noticed an old maroon-colored car parked outside. Reeves' storefront had a short brick wall about a quarter of the way up, but from the brick up to the roof was all glass. The type of glass you can see through on one side, but is a mirror on the other. I didn't pay much attention to the car at first. I rode up on the sidewalk and gently wrestled the handlebars of my bike against the wall. I hopped off my bike and, by force of habit, looked into the store window. In the reflection behind me, in the old maroon car, sat a little old lady in the passenger seat. She was dressed in all green, dark green, wearing a beret hat, and she had one of those crotcheted Afghan blankets draped around her shoulders. She looked very, very old. Deep wrinkles covered her face to the point that I couldn't even see her eyes, and her skin had a gray tint to it. She smiled sweetly at me in the mirror, but when I turned around to wave and smile back, she wasn't in the car. Confused, I glanced back at the store window, and I could still see her sitting there in the passenger seat, smiling at me. Fight or flight kicked in, and I aborted all thoughts of 3D Doritos and Gatorade and raced off as quickly as I could. I didn't even get on my bike. I grabbed it by the handlebars and pushed it as I ran as fast as my little legs would go. Looking back, the little old lady really seemed to mean me no harm. Her wrinkled face looked kind and her smile was warm. But my 7-year-old brain yelled, "Ghost!" and told me to run. When I told my mom about it a few days later, she told me sometimes spirits get stuck or have unfinished business, so they can't pass on. I remember this encounter fondly these days though, and I wish I could have better reacted to the situation. Maybe I could have helped the Green Lady somehow. Case notes for the creepy file number 48, The Green Woman. So first off, no Kit Kat bars? Just Doritos and Gatorade? Come on. No matter what, even if we're talking about spirits or ghosts or glitches, in the end, it's always Kit Kat bars. They come first. I don't care if a demon is chasing after me. I'm getting my delicious chocolate wafers no matter what. You can be sure of that. And I think your mom is correct in that spirits can become attached. If there's echoes of remnants, the souls of people who passed away, for them to remain on Earth bound by gravity and all the effects of it, and even light, in the times where we see them, it means that the EM spectrum light, visible light, is bouncing off them and going back to our eyeballs. And for that to happen, I would imagine there'd have to be something very potent binding them to the planet. About 61 million people die every single year of various causes. Of course, more people are born, so the population still grows, but a lot of people die every single year. I don't think most people know how many people die every year. It's kind of insane to think about it. But yeah, 61 million people die, roughly. Variance by year, of course. And of course, there's not 61 million echoes or ghosts that are reported all the time. There's a fair bit, but nowhere near 61 million. I mean, I would have more stories than I could read in 1,000 lifetimes if that was the case. No, so they're still somewhat rare, if you know what I mean. Which means there's some sort of trigger. They have to be bound here by some potent, important, emotional connection. Beyond just, oh, well, I mean, you know, I didn't shut off the stove, or I didn't say goodbye to one person. It has to be something truly grinding at their soul, their very essence, or it's not enough. And I'm sure it varies by person. Maybe for some people, it doesn't have to be quite as intense as others, but I think for most people, it needs to be truly remarkably intense and potent. And again, just to stress the rarity of this, I'm 32, and I've never encountered a ghost yet, myself, or even the inclination or the suspicion of a ghost being around. No light flickers, nothing that I can't explain away by old plumbing or anything like that. I mean, I can't wait to experience it if I do, but it does mean they are fairly rare. Or, if there are a lot of them around, most can't or choose not to interact or make themselves known. That's another possibility.